Welcome to the Earth's Edge podcast. I'm your host, James McManus. At Earth's Edge, we run guided expeditions with a focus on environmental and cultural sustainability. We created this podcast to share stories from people who have found the outdoors and fallen in love with adventure. Each month, we're giving away one of our summit jackets worth €150. To be in the running, all you need to do is subscribe to our mailing list at earths-edge.com/podcast. There's a link in the show notes. Now, for today's guest.
Well, age is, first of all, and this is corny, but it's only a number. And, I don't care about age. I just do what I want to do. If that sounds selfish or conceited, it's not meant to. It's just that age shouldn't be a barrier, and it's not a barrier, for anybody. Age, sex, or creed shouldn't be a barrier for anybody. Just, even if it's something small, just do it, for yourself,
You're listening to Marian Timmons, who first found adventure at the age of 52. A stressful job and a busy family life saw Marian tip the scales at 20 stone. She knew she had to make some serious changes, so she signed up to go to Peru and started training. 9 months later, and 5 stone lighter, she fulfilled a lifelong dream and trekked into Machu Picchu. What a legend. We start out talking about her training program and how she lost all that weight. So, Marian, we first spoke on the phone back in January 2017, and within a couple of days, you'd booked a trip to Peru to trek to Machu Picchu. What spurred you on to that decision?
What spurred me onto that decision was January 2017, I had just retired from a very stressful job, 30 and a half years in one of the most stressful jobs ever. And I always said when I retired, I was going to travel, and I always wanted to see Machu Picchu. So I wanted to travel to Peru, and I didn't know how to go and do it. So I checked out some travel companies, saw yours, and the rest is history.
Tell us, what was a stressful job?
I worked in prisons for 30 and a half years.
Wow.
So it was, pretty stressful.
Okay, I can imagine. God, it's a different job to what we're used to hearing about on trips. But that's the thing about our trips on Earth's Edge. You meet a crazy, eclectic bunch of people, all different kind of backgrounds, and what makes them so great. Tell me, like what kind of fitness prep did you have to do to get ready for Machu Picchu? Were you already into fitness beforehand, or what stage were you at?
Okay, so to get ready for when I retired in January 2017, I looked at myself and I went, if I don't get my house in order, I won't live to see 2018, let alone 2019 or further. So when I retired, I was 20 stone, morbidly obese, type 2 diabetes, and a cholesterol of 14. So I was pretty unhealthy. That was years of shift work and bad eating and stress.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of prep to do. So I booked your trip in October. And in January, I said, that's it now, get myself ready to go to Machu Picchu. So I started in the January 2017 on a healthy eating and fitness regime with the trip in mind that October. So I started off losing the weight, and then I started to get fit, and then I started to walk around the mountains around Wicklow. And then I got myself ready for the trip in October.
Amazing. That's amazing. So come here, just to be clear, right? So you booked a trip in January, and you traveled in October. So how much weight did you lose in that period?
I dropped 5 stone.
Wow, that's so amazing.
I know. And it wasn't even starvation. I tell you, I went to this place in Nav, and I heard about it, and I'll give him a plug. It was called One-to-One Fitness, and it was Beat the Bulge, it was called, especially for people who needed a help to get back into fitness. And so
plug away. Sorry.
Yeah, well, I paid a couple of guys to go out hiking with me. I didn't know anybody to go hiking. I used a couple of hiking companies, went out a few times on the mountains to get ready more or less. And then I was ready to go in October with you, and the rest is history.
Amazing. So come here, tell me about I'm fascinated to hear about your training regime. So what was involved in losing, shifting all that weight and getting fit?
Okay, eating healthy, first of all, and exercising 3 times a week. It was an hour 3 times a week for the first 2 to 3 months. And then after that, when I say an hour, it was an hour in the gym doing body weight exercise, because body weight exercises they're very hard. They're they're as hard as any weight you lift, body weight, once you do it properly, and just lots of lunges, lots of squats, lots of down ups, throwing yourself on the floor, lifting yourself up, lots of cardio, boxing, that kind of stuff. And then progressed to, I did an hour's walking every day as well on top of that. And then all of a sudden, literally I looked at myself and realised I had a stone gone, then 2 stone. And it was just easy. From January to October, I dropped 5 stone. It was easy for me because I had a lot of motivation. I mean, I was very unhealthy. I needed to get my house in order. I had 3 children and a husband. And I felt that if I didn't get my health in order, first of all, I wouldn't be able to travel. But second of all, I couldn't live life properly. I mean, I was sitting on a couch, vegging, drinking a bottle of wine every couple of nights and eating crisps and cheese and, the usual in a rut, so I just got out of the rut.
Yeah. And come here, you were saying your job was really stressful. Like, do you think that was a significant factor in you putting on the weight in the first place and then like losing it once you retired? Like, talk to me about that, like the impact of stress on you. Stress,
the impact of it. Well, first of all, it affects you mentally and physically. So you feel you don't have time to exercise, you don't have time to eat properly. And then it's a vicious circle. The less you exercise, the less you eat properly, the more you end up eating badly. You sit on the couch, you don't go out, you get a bit down. It's purely stress and shift work. You see, I worked nights and 12-hour shifts on nights, coming home and then not going to bed because you're managing a house and your husband's working and you're managing 3 kids and you're cooking and, still stuff. The stress just builds up, and then it's literally years of eating badly, sleeping badly, not exercising, 12-hour shifts. It just takes its toll, and all of a sudden I'm in a bit of a state,
Yeah. Fair play to you, like, Jesus, some journey. And come here, the question I had for you, right? So basically, pretty soon after you retired, you're like, I'm going to Machu Picchu. Yeah. Like, that's a pretty confident move. Like, have you always been confident? Like,
yeah, no, if I want to do something, I'll do it. I've always been confident. I always wanted to travel. I always wanted to go to Machu Picchu. As a kid, when you read about Machu Picchu in the books, and it was just always on my list, and I always wanted to do it. And I just said, I'll do it. Just do it, make a decisive action. And I was fortunate to retire early. I retired at 51, and I'm in the fortunate position that I had a bit of a pension, and I didn't have to worry too much about paying bills and stuff like that. So I know I'm very fortunate I could do it. And then I just went, I'm going to do it. My husband was like, you've always wanted to do it, go. You have my blessing, for the want of a better word. So I just booked it and worked towards it.
Amazing. I think that's so cool, because a lot of people you chat to, get into that morbidly obese space, it takes them a period of time to kind of come out of it and to start doing little bits of gym or short things. I love the way you just were like, okay, I'm going to Machu Picchu this year. You pretty much booked the trip, and then you're like, okay, I got to get, as a secondary thought, I got to get ready. So you kind of put that pressure on yourself. I'm kind of similar, to be honest. Like, I think a lot of us are, when we have an event in the future, we're like, okay, I can get fit. I'm going to get ready for that. But without that, it's quite hard. But yeah, total respect for getting straight in there and booking something on. That's pretty cool.
I was only thinking there, last year, somebody was saying to me, how can you afford to go away every year on a trip? And I went, quite easily. And it's not that I'm wealthy, because I have to say we're not wealthy. We're just an average family, if you know what I mean. But I drink rarely and I don't smoke. And I was saying, I don't know how much 20 cigarettes are now. They might be 14 or 15 euros.
Well, I think they're 20, are they?
They're not, are they? Well, if it's 20 euros for 20 cigarettes, some people smoke 100 cigarettes a day.
Yeah,
but what's that? That's 100 quid a week, 400 quid a month, $4,000 a year.
Yeah, exactly.
That's more than a trip. That's a trip and a quarter.
Yeah.
That's how I equate spending money. I equate it to trips, or it's like you go out for a meal. Yeah, meals are great. We all love going out. But if you spend 100 quid a week on a meal, that's the same. That's 400. That's 4,000 a year over.
Listen, I've said it already and I can't say it enough times, like, total kudos and fair play to you. I'm sure you're going to inspire a lot of people listening to this that are maybe in the same position you were a couple of years ago. And it's fantastic.
Well, it's easy, it's easy to wake up one day and you're middle-aged. That's basically it's really easy to wake up one day and you look in the mirror and you realise, God, I'm 51, 52, 53. I'm 55 now. And you have to say to yourself, I say to myself, age is, first of all, and this is corny, but it's only a number. And, I don't care about age. I just do what I want to do. And that sounds a bit if that sounds selfish or conceited, it's not meant to. It's just that age shouldn't be a barrier, and it's not a barrier, like, you know, for anybody. Age, sex or creed shouldn't be a barrier for anybody. Just, even if it's something small, just do it, like, for yourself, like, you know.
Let's take a break there for some quick fire questions. What was your first job?
Oh, I worked in a graveyard cleaning headstones.
What song is always on your workout playlist?
Oh, God, some AC/DC.
What are you reading right now?
American Dirt, I just finished.
If you were stranded on a mountain with one celebrity, who would it be?
It'd have to be Aunt Middleton.
What is your favourite food to eat on a mountain?
Anything local, the Porter's Cook. I love it.
What's your favourite piece of kit?
God, my boots. Yeah, definitely my boots.
What's your biggest pet peeve when travelling?
You know what? Confined in an airplane seat, that's it.
If money wasn't a factor, what would you do all day?
Travel.
And finally, describe yourself in 3 words.
Happy, adventurous and lively.
Fantastic. My dad is 74. He's been on a lot of these big trips, so you've got lots of time, you know.
Yeah.
And even from an acclimatization perspective, like the young fit males, they tend to have the most issues with altitude sickness, just because as a demographic, they're the most confident, overconfident really, and they struggle with things like acclimatization, going slow and preparing properly, just because they have that overconfidence. So if you look after yourself, as you're saying, you don't drink, you don't smoke, you're training on a regular basis, there's no reason why you can't be doing trips for the next 20 years, you know?
Oh, please God, I hope to be up a mountain when I'm like 80. Where's Mum? Yeah. She's up a mountain. Where's Nanny? Up a mountain.
Up a mountain, cool. So 2017, obviously you were probably, once you started getting into the training, you were buzzing for it. Yeah. Talk to me about the reward at the end. You went to Peru, you went to Machu Picchu. How was that?
Oh, lads, it was unbelievable. First of all, it's a fantastic country to go to, but the reward at the end, I remember hiking in along the train tracks into Agua Calientes, and we stopped at this kind of park and sat down to eat our lunch that the guys had given us, a packed lunch, and I looked up and I saw Machu Picchu in the distance, and to say it was a moment, it was like a lifetime realization. I always wanted to go there, and all of a sudden it was in front of me. I'm even getting shivers now thinking about it. It's really like I'm here, and then it's just that incredible feeling of achieving something, and we hadn't even gone into it, or we hadn't even climbed up the mountain yet at that stage. It was just the fact that I was there. But to go and see the ruins and to see the atmospheric feeling, to see all the places you've only ever read about, and then to climb up the steps to the top of the mountain. And there's me in my hiking boots, and I didn't have poles, but we had a small rucksack in our back, and we're, you know, climbing up all these hundreds of steps. And this woman walked beside me. She must have been Peruvian, in a pair of high heels and a skirt. And she overtook us going up the steps. But anyway, no, it was amazing to the top of that mountain and to look out. It felt like it was on top of the world. And I suppose that's the feeling that I realized I loved, you know, that I'm here, I've arrived.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially after the year you had, like, I mean, the sense of achievement is just insane, you know, and Machu Picchu, like, you know, you can talk to people about it and describe it, but it just is one of those places. It's absolutely insane. You can't
describe it, really. Sure you can't, because even from getting up early in the morning to go on the bus, it's that feeling of anticipation, and then you're driving, because you're not allowed to approach it on your own. You have to go, as you know, it's an organised group to get there. But it's just incredible to seeing it, of realising kind of my life's dream to see it, like, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Did you enjoy that day? Right. So one of my favorite days on that trek is the day before you walk along the train tracks, where you go to the coffee farm and the hot springs.
The hot springs.
So lads, good, isn't it?
The hot springs, I was hoping you'd ask about that. It's the most amazing place. It's in the middle of these mountains, and all of a sudden there's this natural swimming pools, and you go in and it's like 23, 24 degrees and everybody's just swimming. It's incredible. It's the most idyllic experience. Forget these infinity pools you see in hotels. The only pool to see are the natural springs. They're incredible. They're just incredible.
Amazing. Yeah. And you get to, you know, we're finished acclimatizing at that point, so you get to have a beer and all that kind of thing. Marian, the other thing I love about that day is earlier on, we go to the coffee farm and we have the pachamanca. So just describe that to the listeners. It's a traditional Peruvian dish.
The barbecue.
The barbecue.
Yeah.
We wrap different types of meat and then vegetables separately in banana leaves. And we bury that in.
The guys dig a hole in the ground.
Yeah.
And their kitchen is, actually I took photographs of the kitchen because my husband's a chef. And what really struck me first of all was the kitchen guys, they had their hats on, their big white chef hats in the middle of the coffee farm, in the middle of this little kitchen, this setup kitchen. But okay, so they dig some holes in the ground and then they wrap all the lunch in big banana leaves, as you said, the vegetables and meat, and they wrap it in the leaves, stick it in the ground, cover it with soil and hot coals and cook it. And while that's cooking, we go off and we pick coffee beans, and you get your... When I say a tour, it's the coffee plantation owner shows you around his pride and joy, because that's his whole life, that coffee farm. And then you go around, pick your beans, and you come back and you grind coffee beans, and you get a chance to brew some real coffee. And then you sit down and the lads bring the lunch out, and it's like a feast. So all the big long trestle tables you're sitting at, and there's wine if you want wine or beer. And then the guys bring out the food, and it's just platters and platters of this fresh food wrapped in banana leaves. It's just, I can't describe the food because it's gorgeous and it's so real. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah. I love that place. Is this funny, like kind of in joke we have at Earth's Edge? The guy that owns that coffee farm is Freddie, and he's got good English, but it's not amazing, you know? Like obviously he speaks perfect Quechua and Spanish. He has this joke that not with our groups he got in big trouble telling. It's actually hilarious, right? So when you go out into the coffee farms, you know, like he's describing the different type of like coffee beans, and there's also like they plant avocado trees over the coffee, which are quite large.
Oh, and they're gorgeous avocados as well, by the way.
Unbelievable. And then he has like, he's got different types of banana trees there because they're good for the fertilization, right? But he has this joke that he did with us, but apparently there was a German group there and he got in really hot water over it. So he gets this plantain, which is like quite a large banana, and he holds it up and he's like, this one we call Inca penis banana. Right. And then he has this little tiny one, like it's like, honestly, like it's like 2 inches long. He's like, this banana, this one we call gringo penis banana. And it's just like hilarious because everyone is just like not excited. They're breaking their arse laughing. But he got in big trouble with a German group over that. But
they didn't like the penis reference, obviously.
No, they didn't enjoy that. But I thought it was just pure gold. Like,
but that coffee plantation is, you camp there as well that night, as you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And as you know, of course, you know, you organise it. You can have a beer there that night as well. But it's a magical place to camp as well. It's just, it's crazy, like, you know, or what you camp near it, should I say. It's incredible, like, you know. Yeah,
it's a super trip. I love Peru. It's so cool. And since you were there, we've actually changed up the itinerary. We go to another city called Choqquequirao as well.
Yeah, I regret missing that.
Yeah, you'll have to go back now, you know.
Yeah.
So come here, then in 2018, you did our Kenya Tri-Venture expedition. What was that like?
Lads, that is the most incredible trip. Out of all the trips I did, I'd say it's my favourite. No, I know it's by no means the most difficult. It's my favourite because of the variety. Fly into Nairobi, which is amazing. It's like, Nairobi. And then you go on this bus and you rock up to this, it's like an oasis in the middle of Kenya is all I can say. So there's these hut-stroke houses that you stay in for the first night. And the next day you head out on the trail in the back of jeeps and they drop you to your start point and you start hiking. You hike up to Mount Kenya, which is just an incredible hike. It's just under 5,000 meters, but it's just an incredible, the hike is just the walk in and it's incredible. The night before you arrive at your you call it base camp because it's your camp before you set off for the summit morning. But you go up to you're near this cliff and you peer over the cliff. It's like looking over the edge of the world is all I can say. It's unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. I can't describe how unbelievable it is, I suppose. It's just when we walked into that camp, Louise was our guide and we walked in and I sat down on a bench, which was like a tree stump, and I started crying. And Louise said to me, "Are you all right?" I said, "No." And I just cried and cried. And I didn't know what was wrong. Like, you know, and she said, altitude often affects people. And I didn't realize that. But anyway, it's just kind of this moment. And it's kind of just feel like overwhelmed, I think, because you're in such a beautiful place. Does that make any sense? Does it?
Oh, it absolutely does. You know, it's so humbling, isn't it, to be in some of these places? Like, you're just kind of like, whoa, like, this puts everything else into context. But I mean, that trek on Mount Kenya is absolutely amazing. We probably get about, you know, we do one trip there a year, and we do so many in Kili, and Kilimanjaro is amazing. Don't get me wrong, but on Mount Kenya, you know, it's just the route we take up, the Chikoria route. It's not that busy, and there's so much wildlife. There's nobody else there. It's
we saw
incredible.
the native animal there, the rock.
The closest relevant to the elephant.
That's right, yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
And summit night, as you said, we didn't meet one single person on that trail. Not one single other person the whole time we were there. And on summit night, that's amazing. You get up at 2:15 in the morning and it's frozen. There's snow. It's absolutely frozen. And you go into the mess tent, and the guys, Julius and his guys, have tea waiting for you, and there's porridge there, and they're saying, no, eat the porridge. And then they have an array of snacks for you to stick in your pocket and your bag for summit night, summit day. And you head off up the trail in the pitch dark with your head torch. But what struck me was about 3 hours later, we were still on the trail, and it was getting a bit difficult because we were just at nearly 5,000 meters. And I looked to the left, there was Venus and the sunrise.
Wow.
And the moon. I mean, all on my left-hand side. Yet that trip was amazing. And then you do your summit and you come down. But then the next day, you get on a bike and you cycle across the Kenyan plains. I mean, what's not magical about that? Like, you know?
Yeah, I know.
And then the first night, then you cycle up to this game reserve, and the bus meets you and you go in. And we were all sitting on the bus and we were like, yeah, we're going into this lovely place. And next of all, we go through these gates, and I said, Louise, and I started. She said, what? And I was crying, there's elephants. There was elephants all around us. And she said it was so funny. I was like, elephants. I didn't think we would see elephants like in front of you. But there was elephants, giraffes, you name it, we saw it. We actually saw lions and tigers as well. We saw hippopotamus, everything. And then we camped in the middle of that for the night. I mean, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Old Pedge today, the park we go to, is just so well stocked. It's just like, you know, like you never can guarantee anything. Like, but like, you know,
we saw them all.
People, yeah, like it's just so easy to see game there. I've been actually on that trip, the people, because we do, after the first day of biking, we do a game drive, and you camp in the park, which you can tell us a little bit more about in that in a second. And then we do another game drive in the morning.
Yeah.
I've actually been on trips there where like some of the clients have been like, I'm actually going to sleep in. I'm not going to do the second game drive because they've seen that all several times the night before. Some people are like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
Which is mad really, to be honest, because it's like people spend thousands of euros to go to Africa to see this stuff. And you're just like, we saw it on that Kenya Tri Venture trip, you know, but.
Well, actually, that's what one of the guys the next morning went, God, this is a bit like we saw these the night before. And we're like, oh my God, first world problems.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, cool. And then you finish the bike and then you go rafting. How did you find the rafting?
The whitewater rafting was brilliant. So you go on, the guys go through the safety stuff with you, and they drive you to a point in the river. And I think there was 4 rafts. There was 4 rafts for everybody. And you go into, they ask you, are you afraid? Are you a bit nervous? Are you adventurous? So we went, give us the be all and end all raft. So you go onto the raft, and lads, they flip you. They turn the raft over. You go under, we'll call them little waterfalls. You go down rapids, and then you get off the raft and you jump into a thing they call the devil's toilet bowl. So you jump into like a swirl. It's incredible. It's just incredible.
Yeah, it's great. That's the nicest thing about that rafting trip is like, you know, if you want to get trashed and flip and get in the water a lot, you can. But if you want to take it easy and stay dry, you can do that too, which is great. Yeah, it's awesome.
I did the addition at the end as well. I did the bungee jump.
Go on out of that.
It was incredible. So Mark, the doctor, and another girl, Kasia, another girl, and myself, we did the bungee jump, and it was brilliant.
And then you went to my favorite place to trek in the world last year. You went to Sukhangri in Ladakh in northern India. How was that?
Incredible. Nothing prepares you for it. It's like I've never been to India before and I've never been to Tibet, but I imagine it's sort of like what Tibet is like. Everybody says it's very similar to it, but it's such a beautiful part of the world. All the stupas, the stupas, and then you're surrounded by the Himalayan mountains, and the people are just so gorgeous. The scenery is so fabulous. Yeah, it's just so peaceful, and so it's like if ever I was on my own and I wanted to go somewhere to live, I would go there. I think it's like you'd live there. You'd live your life out there. It's so peaceful and fabulous.
Absolutely. For me, like it's like the mecca of adventure sport in the world, Ladakh. It's just got it all, you know, and you combine that with the culture. And as you said, the scenery is just stunning. Like it's a high altitude desert, which kind of doesn't sound that great, but when you see it, like just these amazing views, you can see out into the Karakoram.
And you can see the highest road in the world. Jeshu showed us from the right-hand side from the stupa. So we were hoping, but it didn't transpire to hire a bike and come down on it. But it was too icy. I mean, it would have been too dangerous. We reckoned we probably would have had an accident had we come down on the road on the ice. So we didn't. But yeah, it's a fabulous place. The adventure sports look amazing. I'd definitely go back there to do rafting without a doubt.
So come here, speaking of going back, the two of us were heading back there together. Well, but not just the two of us now. There's some other people coming with us.
Yeah.
But you're heading for in 2021.
Yeah.
Touching wood here with the vaccine, if all going to plan, you're going to do Kitty and you're going to do Kangyatsy in 2021.
Hopefully, yeah.
Amazing. Fair play to you, like.
Hopefully.
And what are your other bucket list trips?
Yeah, I don't really look at them as bucket list trips. I suppose I just do what takes my fancy. I would love to go to Aconcagua. I would love to do that. A guy that was on the trip with us last year, Eugene, he went to do Aconcagua after he went to Stock, but he didn't tell anyone he was doing it. He's lovely. He lives in the African continent. Now he's from Limerick, but he lives in Africa. But he did Aconcagua there in January with you last year, and he loved it. So that would be on my list. I think that's a good challenge. That.
Yeah, that's a good one to aim for. It's no stopping you, absolutely no bother. Like, you know, you'll fly it. Come here, tell me now, Marianne. Your reputation precedes itself. Like, tell me a bit about some of the crack you've had on trips.
Oh, lads, the crack is mighty. I was only reminiscing with myself today. First of all, we were having dinner. We were having our setup. Well, it wasn't celebrated. It was the day after we were up the top of Machu Picchu. We waited till we went back to Cusco to have our celebratory dinner, which you have after every trip. So we went out for just a group dinner that night in Caliantes, and we were all sitting down at this kind of long bench in a restaurant. And next of all, we heard what sounded like a gunshot. And I was only thinking about it today. It was so funny. We all jumped on the floor under the table, Aaron and all. Like, you know, you can imagine a big scream. And we jumped under the table, but it was a car backfiring. But it was so funny.
That's hilarious.
Okay, when we flew into Delhi last year, I'd never been, as I said, in India before. Delhi is amazing. We went out for dinner on the first night. Yeah. And we literally, 3 of us to a tuk-tuk. So there was a group of, can you imagine, 6 tuk-tuks? With all Irish people and gone around like in a motorcade in Delhi. Oh no, the laugh, the crack has been mighty that we've had. Like, you know, you have brilliant fun in the mess tents too. The mess tent is kind of the centre of everything. You go there obviously to eat, but you go there for the laugh and the crack and the stories that you tell. That's the great thing about it. You meet so many different people and everybody has a story.
Absolutely. And it's the time you have as well, you know, like you get out somewhere like stuck angry, you know, and you're just off your phone and it's just quality time, having the crack, learning about people. Yeah, I love that for me.
But you learn a lot about yourself as well, don't you, when you're away?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, for sure. You definitely do. Like, what have you learned about yourself when on expedition?
Well, I'm definitely a better person when I hike, without a shadow of a doubt. I come back much nicer because it gives you that kind of relief. Now, I don't know whether my kids would agree with that, but I think I am. What have I learned? This sounds real like holistic, but I don't mean it to sound like that. But when you're away, you end up thinking about you do reflect on all you've done over your life and where you are at the moment. And you just come back with a greater sense of understanding and appreciation of things and people, because you have all that time, as you said, no phones, no distractions. and it just gives you time to reflect. And I suppose I would never say I'm a very spiritual person, but I suppose we're human beings. It gives you time to be a being, if you know what I mean. We're human beings, I always think, not human doings, and it gives you time to just be. Does that make sense, does it?
Yeah, it totally does, yeah.
So, yeah, I've just learned that. I've learned that sometimes I'm not as tolerant as I should be, but I've learned that I've a deep reserve that I never realised I have. Climbing up those mountains sometimes can be quite difficult, and you just have to get your head in the right place.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't describe myself as a super spiritual person either, but like for some reason, like my mum passed away about 10 years ago, and she was a big driver in starting Earth's Edge. She helped out a lot at the start, and she was super into hiking, you know, like my dad is involved in the business as well. He's a doctor, but she was kind of the driver behind my inspiration to get into outdoors, and took us out as kids and all that. Like, and like, you know, I'm not like one that, you know, you hear people talking about relatives have passed away, you think about them every day and that, but I'm not like that, you know. But coming up close to a summit, she always comes into my head, you know, like I'm always like, it's not like your life flashes before your eyes, but you just get into that kind of spiritual sense. Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? The effect it can have on you.
Well, you do. Sorry, when I said when I was going up Mount Kenya and I reached the base camp and I sat down and I cried. Actually, my mum had only died a few months previously. She died in the June, and I was up in November, and it's kind of cathartic, nearly, being up the mountains. It helps you deal with things as well. It gives you time to realize and to process things, which is we all need and we don't get very often, like, you know.
No, absolutely, yeah, for sure. And come here, tell me this. You were saying you come back a better person. Like, what do you mean by that? Like, in what sense?
I come back happier.
Yeah.
I come back fulfilled. I mean, really, I know we can be very selfish as people, and we all like to do things for ourselves, but sometimes when you go away and you spend that time, a lot of time by yourself, but a lot of time surrounded by other people, but a lot of time reflecting, as I said, on where you are, I realise how I could improve things a bit maybe, or come back going, I think I have a bit more patience this time. I've had a great 2.5 weeks on my own doing what I want to do. And then it gives you a bit more patience. It gives you time to appreciate, I suppose, the people and the things that you do have when you're away, which we don't often appreciate.
Yeah, absolutely. I can empathize with you there. You know, like I haven't been with the pandemic. I haven't been away on expedition. I'm usually away on 4 or 5 in a year, and it's kind of. I just find I get super busy without a trip. You know, it's like a reset button. It's absolutely awesome to get away on a trip. Yeah, I can't. God, it's interesting chatting to you. Like I'm just absolutely buzzing to get away on another expedition as soon as I can. But
I'm dying to get away too. Janie, it won't come quick. August won't come quick enough. Like, you know, that's just the way it is. Sometimes the world has a funny way of looking at things, doesn't it? It throws curveballs at you, doesn't it?
That's it. Like, you know, we can't control these things. Just make the best of it. Like, you know, tell me this. What was your toughest moment on an expedition on a mountain?
My toughest moment actually was last year up in Stock. We went on an acclimatization hike after we reached base camp. And I just said to myself, what I found about that base camp was, and when I think about it, I felt very wobbly up there. But it wasn't just me. Everybody was saying it. You could move like 2 or 3 meters and you could really feel the difference in the altitude. I don't know whether it was the weather but because the guys, all of a sudden, as you know, the weather turned, but the guys said they'd never had weather like it in years and years and years, I think.
Yeah, you guys had horrific weather up there. None of our team or any of the other teams at that time even attempted summits. So yeah, it was super tough.
But you know what, that's what's really good too, in that Brian was there, and Brian was our leader, and then you have the guys there, Jetu, their local guide. You have to trust them implicitly, like, you know what I mean? And you do. And that's really good too, because I knew up there, the altitude was mad, like, you know what I mean? I just felt the altitude was difficult for me up there at that time. But for the group generally, I trust Brian and Jetu implicitly. And when they say, lads, we need to go down, you go down because you know that they know what they're doing. And often, I think for me, it's important when I go away, because I have a husband and children at home, that they know that I'm safe. And for me, it was important that I trust them to make the decision that's right for the group. Does that make sense to you, does it?
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Because I know that some people were disappointed that they didn't summit there last year. In fact, a lot of people were, but Brian and Jetu made the right call because the snow, I think it was 4 or 5 foot of snow.
Yeah, it was so uncommon for that amount of snow in Sokangri. But I mean, like Brian and G2, I know G2 a long time. Like we first met back in 2007. Super professional guides, like, and yeah, you got to make that the safety first approach, because the thing is, Marian, is, like everybody, yourself, like, you're training for a solid year to get ready for Sokangri, and your whole goal of the expedition is get to the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't work like that with mountains, like you have to respect the mountain, and sometimes it's just not your day and you have to be willing to accept that. It's where you had that mentality where you're like, okay, I'm going to summit this thing no matter what. That's where it becomes a little bit dangerous. So
yeah, and it does. And as I said in previous times, it's not only all about the summit, it's the journey getting there as well, because it's the journey as in not only the walking, you're hiking and you're surrounded by this beauty. It's the whole journey of, I suppose, you're prepping for the trip, getting there, hiking up the mountains, your spiritual journey, you're just surrounded by meeting your new people. The whole journey, I mean, summit is brilliant. Yeah, to summit the mountain is a fantastic achievement of any mountains I've summited. But, if you can't, there's nothing you can do about it. It's out of your hands. Actually, when we went back down, we were up to Stupa the next day when we went back down to Lay, and Jetu was showing us the avalanches on the mountains that we just come down from in the distance. So, I mean, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, like, I mean, there would have been lots of avalanche there, because it's just so much snow that's not typical.
Now, we were well off the mountain at that stage, but what I'm saying is they know what they're doing. We were down in the town because just said, no, we're coming off before any more snow happens, because that's what they do. What amazed me though was some of his guys were up that mountain in sandals, lads, sandals, and they're brilliant.
Yeah, they're amazing. Like, I mean, like when you think about it, yeah, some of the guys like are Indian guys. Most of them are from a place called Uttarakhand, or as they like to call it, the UK in India. And they're just like, they're built for mountains, like physiologically. And then they just, like I would consider myself pretty fit, but I spend 250 days of the year in an office. So these guys are out there all the time, and they're just mountain people, so they're a distinct advantage, and they're tough as well. But yeah, absolutely awesome.
And nothing is too much for them as well. They do anything for you.
Yeah, they are my team in India. Like, I mean, before I started in Earth's Edge, I was out working there, and they taught me a lot about customer service and how to look after people. So, everybody really that works with us here in Ireland, our guides, our doctors, our local staff, like our passion is people. And I think, no one is working in the outdoor industry to get super rich, and you need to buzz off people's experience that are in your care. So they all share that passion with me. So they're fantastic guys. And I'm really looking forward to getting out to Kangyatsy with you in August. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see who I'll be sharing a tent with. I have to say, one of the funniest things about hiking and tenting abroad, lads, if anybody hasn't done it, it's brilliant. You're back to basics. Forget your makeup and forget your jewelry. You're just you and your wet wipes and your bag. And it's brilliant because, you don't have to worry about things. You don't have to. What I love about when I come back down the mountain and you go in and you have your shower, you look in the mirror and you go, God, do I really look that good? You forget, you're all looking at yourself and you're going, God, I hate my lines. I hate this and I hate that. When you come back down and you haven't seen yourself in like a week or 10 days, you think, God, I look good. Does that make, you know what I mean? Yeah. You're looking at yourself with fresh eyes. And one of the funniest things on the trip, actually, you asked what was a funny thing. I was sharing a tent last year with a wonderful girl called Anne-Marie. Let me preface this by saying she's 30-ish and stunningly beautiful. Now, you meet somebody and they're gorgeous. She's just gorgeous. Anyway, and I was sharing a tent with her and we got on like a house on fire. First of all, it's great to meet new people and then to share the tent with somebody who's like 25 years younger than you. But lads, having a wet wipe wash in a tent with another person is just hilarious because all kind of privacy, you don't worry about it in the end. You're just like, yeah, we'll just do this. At the start, you're kind of coyly trying to change, in your sleeping bag. Doesn't matter. By the end of the week, you're like, will you take that bra for me? Will you? Will you do this? Will you do that? Like, you know, it's just funny. You get on so well with people. You just get used to each other, and it's fabulous. Like, you know, you develop relationships with people, really deep relationships over the course of the week, because you get to know each other inside out.
Absolutely. Like, you know, even most of us, like, if you think about your best mates, like, you know, at life, and we're all working or families, like, you see each other maybe, you know, once or twice a year now. Where you're in a tent having a chat with someone for 2 or 3 hours every day. Like, it's amazing the bonds people
you
strike
form
up on expedition.
Really deep bonds with people, because you end up telling anybody going away, whether you want to or not, you end up telling people your whole life story. Stuff you tell years ago, it would have been in a confession box. You tell the priest. You nearly tell people your whole life, because it's really, you can just, everybody does it. I don't know whether it's the mountains, whether it's the altitude, whether it's just that, you know, the comfortable feeling you have. You just end up sharing with people you meet. It's brilliant.
Yeah, it is fantastic for sure. So come here, you were talking about camping there. Like, for someone who's never been on maybe their only experience of camping is, you know, maybe 1 or 2 nights at a festival. Like, how rough do you think it was? Like, was it higher or lower standard than what you were expecting before you went on one of our trips?
It was a good standard. The first trip we went on, we hiked up when we were in Peru, and we went up to the Salcantay Trail. That's where we started on before you changed the trip. I don't know, do you still go up the Salcantay Trailway? We
go a different way, yeah, but it's all the same equipment. We go on the Chucky Corral trek, yeah.
When we were on the way up, I don't know, does it follow me around, but they had snow, and they hadn't had snow in years. On that particular trip, Aaron was like, oh my God. But when we got there, these orange tents, we got into our tent. He said, go into the tent and get changed, get warm. The tents were set up, lads, with the ground sheet, with the not mattresses, but the thick layers that you put your sleeping bags on. Very comfortable, very warm. And then
Marian, hang on there 1 second. Yeah. Just hold on a second. I just want to ask you something. You had snow in Kenya, stuck angry in India, and you also had it in Peru as well. Yeah. So basically, you're a bit of a ship magnet, like
snow magnet.
Yeah. I'm not. I'm a bit worried about going to Kanyatsi with you next year.
They said it never snowed in Peru. And we were up there, and we walked into a bloody blizzard. We were like, and I'll let you into a secret. When I got the packing list, you know, the list that you send out to tell you what to bring. Now, bearing in mind, we're going to Peru in South America, and on the list was gloves. And I said to myself, sure, what did they know? Who needs bloody gloves going to Peru? So what did Marian not do? She didn't bring gloves at all.
Oh, you're some pup.
Yeah, and then we're halfway up the mountain, and the snow hit, and my hands were frozen because I didn't bring the gloves. Now, somebody gave me a pair, but
did Aaron not give you his gloves, no?
Aaron didn't even need gloves, nor a hat. You know what he's like? He was just like, oh, what was it? I'm trying to think.
He's when he's working, he's tough. Like I climbed an alley with him a few years ago. You know, he likes his creature comfort sometimes, you know, so yeah, no, he's a superstar. I'm only joking.
No, he's great. No, I know, but somebody gave me a pair of gloves. But that's actually, if anybody who's listening to this hasn't gone on a trip and you get the packing list, bring what they tell you, because I learned badly that year. I really thought, why would you want to bring gloves to Peru? I mean, I didn't pay attention to the glove part, but I wouldn't go anywhere now without 3 sets of gloves: my liners, my gloves, and my mitts.
Okay, cool. So that's great advice, Ashley. Yeah. Sorry, dude, I interrupted you there. You were talking about the camping. So it's pretty good standard, like, you know, like what you're well after.
One of the creature comforts really too, what they give you, which we couldn't believe when we were in Peru, every morning the guys came around with a little basin of hot water for you to wash your face and your hands in. I mean, that's lovely. Do you know what I mean? It was lovely. And they even brought us around a cup of tea. But no, the comforts, I mean, okay, it's camping. You're not going to it's not like going to the south of France in a camp, on a campsite. But it's, the tents are super, they're big enough too for 2 people. And the mess tent then is fabulous. The food is fabulous. Now, and even the toilets weren't too bad, actually, because any toilets we've had were all sit-down toilets, which is apparently quite unusual for a lot of places abroad. They have a toilet tent with you sit on it, and it's clean and it's comfortable and it's all looked after.
We will under promise and over deliver on the toilet. Like, the toilet's pretty good, but like, it's not, you know, like, it's not ensuite toilet of a 5-star
No,
hotel.
it's not. But I mean, it's not. You still have somewhere to put your butt when you want to poop. Like, you know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean,
You've
that's
tired
really all
legs,
you
you get
need.
to sit rather than squat, which is
Yeah,
all
I mean, that's a huge bonus when you're away, isn't it?
that's what I love about trekking. Like, do you ever think, like, you know, if you were on a sun holiday, you'd be going to one of your mates, like, geez, isn't this great? Now I get to sit down when I'm having a shit rather than squatting. Like, it's such a luxury. Like, you know, it's just the simple things in life when you're on an expedition are just the best. Like,
but you know what? That's what levels us all, really. It brings us all to the same level, doesn't it? Like, you know what I mean? Everybody has to poop and pee, like, you know. And lads, I have to say, I will put my hand up and admit that the hardest thing at night is to get out of the tent and go to the toilet to get your shoes on. And a girl I met last year, I won't say her name because she'd be mortified, gave us a great tip. She pee. And the
Shiwi. I was going to ask you, are you a user of the Shiwi yourself?
We'll see this year or 2021 because she swears by it. So I was saying last year because I take the, oh lads, come on for the altitude Diamox, and it makes you wee a lot, as you know, because you're drinking loads of water.
Yeah.
And I was saying, I'm up 3 and 4 times a night. And she said, come here, look. And she showed me this bottle of wee she had. She said, I just used the sheep pee, go into the ante room in the tent and pee in it and crawl back into the sleeping bag. So I'll do that next year. Yeah,
I know, like a lot of fellas now, in the sleeping bag, they can pee into the Nalgene, you know, and I know some girls who can do that as well, just straight into the Nalgene without the shiwi, as soon as we're on peeing. But that's, I don't have direct experience with that, but it can be done.
Sounds interesting. We won't have a competition at that now next year, right? We're not having a competition.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's no, unless it's like -20 or lower, like you can get out and go for a pee, like, Jesus.
Oh, you can, absolutely. It's just, you just have to do it. I learned last year too, I bought a new sleeping bag and they had, now it's a good one. And I learned there was an extension on it, which like you can make it slimmer and wider, which is brilliant. Because the first night I was like a mummy and then I realized I could make it wider. I mean, and I've been on camping a few times. You learn everything. You learn new things on every expedition you go on.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. But I mean, you made a top tip there already. Do read the gear list and bring everything.
Oh, lads, if they tell you to bring it, bring it.
Yeah. Deadly. Thank you so much.
It's a no-brainer not to do it because, and you know, you don't have to, also too, people do not have to go and buy top-end brands. Yeah. I'm not into the snobbery element of hiking. I'll always have a good rucksack and good boots.
Absolutely, yeah.
And a good sleeping bag because I don't want to be cold. But look, I won't go and spend 500 quid on a jacket because there's a good name on it. If I can get one, you know, it's good for half. Do you know what I mean? Or a second-hand one. I just don't believe in wasting money either on gear that you know what I mean? For the sake of it.
Yeah, I think there's a balance there. You know, sometimes certain bits of kit, like, you know, your down jacket, sleeping bag.
Yeah, absolutely.
Worth spending money on, but you know, other stuff, it's not as essential. But you do get what you pay for, and then obviously, depending on how high you're going, you need a higher quality gear as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. But what I'm saying is, for anybody starting off, don't think you have to go and spend thousands on gear because you don't.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. That's good advice.
Because a lot of people might think, oh, I can't afford this or I can't afford that, and it's not really about. You know what I mean? I mean, you can even borrow stuff. I borrow stuff. I'm in a hiking group and we lend each other stuff that, you know, all the time, that once-off purchases that you don't want to buy. Somebody might have it, they'll lend it to you, like, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Marian, I was going to say to you that, I think your story is really inspiring, like to go from where you were, to lose all that weight, to go on a trip. And I think it's, you know, I hope other people, some of the listeners will, you know, be inspired by that. But if you had advice for someone who was, you know, thinking about booking that trip, but they were just hesitant and pulling the trigger, like, what advice would you give them?
I'd say, first of all, actually ring and speak to yourself, or speak to Joyce, or speak to somebody in the office, or even speak to somebody who's done it, and then book it and do it. Because just do it because you're doing it for yourself, and it's just challenge yourself, and I suppose be the best version of what you can be. And if that means starting off going around Glendalough and hiking around there, finding your way, and then book your trip. I mean, just do it is my motto. Like, if you can afford it, do it and just enjoy it. Like, you know, because I know life is short, like, you know, and that's really all I can say. Just do it and just enjoy the adventure, embrace it and enjoy it, because the challenge is good. For me, the challenge is good. I love the challenge. I love trying to push myself. And if that means push myself to climb up Carrauntoohil, I'll do it, or I'll try and do it. And you know what? If I don't succeed, I'll try it again. So just try it and do it. You might love it. I never hiked before 2017, now I may add. I never did anything before. And now I love the mountains. I'm in Wicklow, or I'm up in the Coolies most weekends. I have a massive group of friends that I never would have met before. I mean, who goes out and meets new friends and makes groups of friends at 53 and 54 years of age? Not many people.
Yeah, it's amazing.
You know, I have a massive group of friends now, and they are friends that I met through hiking and climbing and through Arts Edge. So, I mean...
It's great.
It is great, like, you know...
Awesome.
I can't say any more. I mean, I'm grateful. This sounds like an advert for you, and it's not. By the way, anybody, I'm not getting paid to do this.
No, you're definitely not. You're not getting paid.
It sounds like an advert, but it's not. It's just kind of, look.
No, I'm just joking.
Corny, but my life changed when I went to Machu Picchu, like, you know what I mean? And that it opened up the world for me and to see what I could do, and, you know?
Yeah, amazing. Oh, dude, that was absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on. It was great chatting to you. Thank you so much.
This podcast was produced by Arts Edge. We're a small business based in Ireland who organise big adventures all over the world. For more information about us and the trips discussed on this podcast, visit arts-edge.com or follow us on Instagram. Don't forget to sign up to our mailing list to be in the running to win one of our Summit jackets. There's a link in the show notes. And while you're there, if you could subscribe and review the podcast, that'd be brilliant. I'm your host, James McManus. Thanks for listening and have a super week.